Hi and welcome everyone to today's Neptune software webinar about API App Factory and App Factory and how to generate APIs and UI5 apps based on SAP artifacts. My name is Hendrik Hase. I'm go-to-market specialist at Neptune Software. And if you have any questions about the topics of this webinar, feel free to use the go-to question area or contact me directly via email. Also, feel free to link with me on LinkedIn or follow me and to get the latest Neptune software informations. With me today is Thorsten Wolf.
Hello, everyone.
Thorsten is Senior Development Consultant in the Neptune DXP core team. So he's right at the heart of our product. And he's going to show us today in a live demo the possibilities of the API Factory and the App Factory. Of course, you can also follow him on LinkedIn or connect with him there. Also, don't forget to follow Neptune Software in all our social media represents. So, for example, you can follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and also check out our YouTube channel where you'll find a whole bunch of interesting videos about customer solutions, technical videos, how-to videos, and super informative stuff there. So but now let's start with our webinar. So some of those features of the products you will see today are still in development and in what we call experimental phase. So this disclaimer basically says that probably they will change in the future until they are finally released. So, but I tell you, they will only increase the functionality than of what you will see today. So to date, there are still a lot of companies that have not started the digitalization process, and many of those are afraid of what will happen to their mostly gigantic investments they have made so far over the last sometimes centuries actually. So what happens to the ABAP developments, the Z coding, the knowledge base of the development department that was built up to customize those SAP function modules and SAP processes that are used by the business, and the business knows how to use them and what fields go where and all that. And also, what about the SAP security layers, like the roles you have and the authentication and all that stuff? What happens with those investments? Is that all lost when we go to mobile applications or places where we can work in the browser or even on mobile devices? So is that all lost? Of course not. With the API and the App Factory, you are able to use all your investment, the knowledge base, security layers, development, and customizing simply in a low-code approach by just creating a tile that you might already know how to do that, and add this tile to your launchpad and secure it with your SAP security layers, and then deploy it to any device that you might use in your company. So, for example, smartphones, tablets, RUC devices, all that. You can just easily configure a tile to use existing SAP functionality, function modules, Z coding, and when we come to our presentation or demonstration today, even ALV reports. So Thorsten is now going to show us how to leverage the SAP system to easily access from outside or from the DXP to get your function modules mobile. So Thorsten, stage is yours. I'm going to hand over the organization so you can share your screen now. Should be able.
No, not yet coming.
Sorry.
No.
Ah. Now
Yes.
you have it.
I have it. Nice. Yeah, Hendrik, thanks a lot for this super nice introduction that perfectly sums up the idea behind the API Factory, why we created it. So yeah, let's maybe start with a super simple use case. So in SAP, you have ALV reports. And how can you transform this ALV report into a SAP UI5 application? Normally, you would say, I need developers, I need to code a lot of things, I need to figure out how the data selection is done. This will take a lot of time, but in a normal way. But with the API Factory and App Factory, it's a matter of configuring this. So today's example is about a very famous report in the sales and distribution area of SAP. So that's called the billing due list. And maybe to start off, I want to show it to you simply in the SAP GUI, how that looks like. So SE38 for executing a ABAP report, and that's called SD bill DL. If we execute that, every business user who uses SAP might be familiar or will be familiar with that selection screen. You get the possibility to enter parameters, ranges, multiple single values. You can save like values you pre-entered into so-called variants. You can even adjust the available fields inside such a variant. So this is a super powerful SAP core functionality. And of course, in the end, if you simply execute that report, you will get the data for that selection you did, and it's simply a flat ALV table, what you get there. So how can we use this, or how can we represent this as a SAP UI5 application in Neptune? And the answer to this is, as you already said, it's going to be in our launchpad, the main entrance point for your business users. It's going to be simply a tile. And when you click on that tile, we will load that SAP UI5 representation of that ALV report. That's what we are going to do now. So let me switch to our cockpit. So this is our cockpit you might be familiar with. And as I said, we will go to run and to tile. And here we have to create now a tile for that report simply. So we will call it report SD bill DL. And now what we need to adjust is simply the action part, because when we click on it, we want to run that report. So you will be seeing a new action type for this called ABAP report. So this is SE38 reports with variants. And here you already have a search help for all your reports, executable reports in your system. So SD bill, let's search for that with a wildcard. And there we have it, maintain billing due list. So we want to use that now. And what you can now also configure is that you want, when you click on that tile, that you not only want to call that report, but also that you want to call it with a specific variant where the selection screen might be pre-filled or where the some fields are hidden. So that's what you can define here in this section. So if I
those variants were made in SAP, right? So it's like the existing variants that customers or companies created for their usage in SAP.
Exactly. So in that report, you will see those are the variants we have. And if you take a look at the search help here, they are directly showing up here. So if I would create a new one, It will automatically show up here. Let's simply do that. Sales organization 1000 maybe, and wait, go to variant save, webinar save. And now if I would search for that, you see webinar, that's a new variant. So we directly fetch it from SAP. Everything is super dynamic. Also, you have the possibility to assign an Rfc destination for that report. So if you have a setup where you have a gateway system and a backend system somewhere else, the report should be called actually on that backend system. So here you simply specify the Rfc destination to that, and it will work just fine. Also, you can say, I don't want the selection screen at all. I want to directly execute that report and show the ALV table. That's also a use case which might be relevant. And last but not least, we have the same configuration for the variant and for skipping the selection screen if you're on a mobile device. Because obviously on a mobile device, the screen is way smaller. So you could prepare a variant, as I did here, with hidden fields, which fits better the purpose of running on a mobile phone. So that's why we have this dedicated parameter here, also skipping the selection screen if you want. So now let's simply save that. Maybe give it a title, billing to list, and subtitle ALV report, and save that. So now what we need to do is put that into a launchpad. I already prepared a launchpad for that called API Factory Webinar. In there we have some tile groups. I have a tile group prepared, ABAP reports. And in that ABAP reports tile group, we now simply add our new tile. So what was the name now? I think this one, the last one, changed. All right, save that. Go back. And now let's run that launchpad and see what happens. So you see, we have all our tile groups, and we have the ABAP reports tile group at the top, and there we have now our tile billing to list ALV report. If I open that, you will now see the App Factory and API Factory come together. So the API Factory will give you the information of that ALV report, and the App Factory is basically the concept of generating UI5 components on top of that. So if we simply compare it, wait, I have to minimize that maybe. And let's go back to the initial selection screen. You will see that we are super close in the way it looks in SAP UI5 than it looks on SAP GUI, basically. So it's a usable SAP GUI selection screen on SAP UI5. Obviously, what we do is we analyze the whole selection screen. So it's giving you as much information as possible. For instance, it will give you information about the typing of those fields. So here we have a date. So you will see, I have now a date picker for that parameter. If we would simply say, okay, billing type that has a search help assigned, or that's, I think, a check table even, you will get the values for that. Let's see how we do it in SAP UI5. That's the same. So we analyze the selection screen and give you as much as information as possible represented in a SAP UI5 manner. Also, what's interesting, you see there are some question marks at the labels. So if I press F1 on such a field, it brings up the documentation of SAP. And if we simply click on that question mark here, you will also get the same documentation of that field. So really the idea is reusing everything you have in your system, leveraging everything you have in your system. And if we spin it even a little further, we can choose variants also. So let's simply check this test phone thing with a little less input fields. And it's not only using the parameters which are filled out, let's choose that here as well. It's also hiding fields. So this is the way we do it here. And if you would want to see how that looks on a mobile phone, we can do that just in the browser now to simulate a phone. And you see, I mean, it's still a very complex application, obviously, with many parameters, but it's absolutely usable on an iPhone. So that's the beauty about it. And if we would now simply execute that, let's maybe restrict it to one sales organization and run that, you will get in the end now, if I run this report with sales organization 1000, the end result list. So you have now that report with the selection screen, with the data, with the variance in your Launchpad without coding anything. That's the point of it. And you obviously have the same capabilities if you would have in the ALV. You can do sorting. Let's do that maybe, sorting, descending. You have grouping, you have filtering fields. So all of this functionality you have in ALV grids, we want to represent you as well in this application. Also, you get Excel export. You can download this list as an Excel file. You can hide columns if you want. Columns are then hidden. And you can choose even layouts. So in SAP, you can hide fields, do sorting, do grouping, and you can save that layout with a specific name. And they are also reused here. So you can reuse everything you have in your system. Yeah, that's the idea basically of that factory.
That's quite awesome, really awesome, and that's all possible because of the API factory, right? Exactly. So maybe we can have a closer look on the API factory, and especially right now with this generated UI5 app, right? I cannot say it more clear that this app is not programmed by anyone, right? It's generated by the app factory based on what the API factory provides. So yeah, and then in this case, we loaded data and showed data out of SAP, but what about creating data and send it back to SAP? Yes. Probably you can show us the API factory with with kind of a solution to do that.
Yeah, so perfect explanation. Maybe one thing I would do in advance, this still looks a little boring. I want to show you one more thing regarding API factory and app factory. So we now generated that selection screen for you and the end result list and stuff like that. But still the tile, it's not looking very nice for a business user. So since this report will give you lots of data about values, and currencies, and sales organizations, would be kind of cool.
Well, I have to say it still looks nicer than the selection screen of the sub GUI, but
yeah, that's just yeah, that should be perfectly explained. So what we can also do is the API factory, it can also post stuff in SAP. That's what we're going to do next. But also it can generate so-called SAP integration cards. So integration cards are like visually nice tiles or cards, which already give you a nice overview about the data of that tile.
So something that I would use for a dashboard, for example.
Exactly. So as a dashboard, we have an overview.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a perfect purpose of that. And a very nice use case for exactly this application is to give the user already an overview of the data behind that report. Right? It would be awesome to have that. And this is very easy to do. So we have our tile. Let's go back to our tile. And now we want to change the type of that tile simply by editing it. And it's not a default tile. It's going to be now an integration card. So integration card, what you have to do when you set that type, you have to specify the API factory class, which we will come to later, which will return the integration card, basically. And the integration card is built up of a so-called manifest JSON, which describes the structure of that integration card, which type is it. There are multiple types, like a list, a table, and also the data inside of it, how the data is retrieved. Also, you can define here a Rfc destination if you like. So if I would now simply search for, I created a billing due list integration card API factory class, and you also specify the method which returns that and the parameter. Since it only has one method which returns a manifest, it knows it and pre-populates everything for you. So now simply save that, switch back to our launchpad, maybe make it a little bigger because there's quite some information showing. I make it a little more width for it.
Yeah.
And now what you see is this integration card concept. You have a header section and you have a detailed section, and those data is actually coming from a specific variant of this report. So you get a nice, super clean overview of the data for that report. And if you open that, you are then in the selection screen where you can analyze stuff, deep dive into the data. And yeah, so this is the integration card part. But now let's go to the point which is very interesting as well about the API factory. It's not fetching stuff from SAP, but really booking stuff into the system. And the best way to do that in SAP, obviously, is by calling function modules. So let's take a look at our API factory now. You will find that under connectivity, REST API, and API factory. And this is basically an overview of all of those API factory classes which are available in the system. You see that you can create your own classes. That's what I did with the integration card for the billing due list, but we will also ship you many of them. The list will grow in the future, and those are actually representing those development artifacts we spoke about before. So we want to expose a program, for instance, as a REST API. And this class, what you see here, is actually the class doing it. This is the class analyzing the selection screen, executing the report, returning the data. So, and there's also one, for instance, for search helps. Execute any search help you want with no code, expose it as a REST API. Tables we have, you can query any table, and powerful is
so that means I can use F4 help from SAP inside my Neptune apps.
Right.
Awesome.
So that's actually what we do. We use exactly that API for this F4 help in the app factory. That's what we use it for. So search helps is possible. But now let's take a look at booking stuff into SAP. So let's open the function module. And here you see how the concept of this API thing is built up. So it's all about the path towards your SAP system. So the path has a prefix like Neptune API dynamic. And then after this prefix, you will simply have to enter the name of the class. So that's simply all of those classes. And then such an API factory class can have additionally a parameter in order to work. So you define in that API factory class, I need the name of a function module in order to perform my actions. But that's not a must. It's possibility. Integration cards might not need that. If we want to execute a function module, I need to know the name of that function module, obviously. So this will be the parameter afterwards. And if we now go to the that's the so-called entity references or entity keys, and this is the overview for that. You see, aha, I need to supply a function name with its description. And now if we type in BAPI sales order create, I don't remember it, but you already see that we have even input validation in place. So it checks if you write something not valid. Let's search for it. BAPI sales or create. So I want to create a sales order now. And it's called BAPI sales order create from .2. That's a very famous function module. And you even get the short description of it here shown. So now let's take a look what the API factory now does with that information. So you see how the request is built up. So it's again this class name, then the name of the function module, and then simply we say, oh, okay, please give me the Swagger specification back. So give me this open API, that's the new term. The old term is Swagger specification. Please give me that back and show it into the standardized Swagger UI way. So you already see that you get on top of it here, you will get the documentation of the function module. Maybe just let's take a look at that function module, transaction SE37, BAPI sales order create from .2. Open that and make it a little bigger. So we have the possibility to navigate to the documentation here of that function module. Every developer, ABAP developer, is used to that. And there you see, we have indeed the same documentation represented in Swagger UI. And this, what you see here, is even SAP independent. It's an open standard for specifying an API. So let's see what we now have here. We have multiple endpoints for retrieving test data stuff, and then we have this execute endpoint. And if we
so basically those are REST operations, right? Absolutely.
That's a REST operation, which actually will simply be appended with that path to the endpoint.
To the method.
Yeah, to the methods. So if we click on execute and we see we have some parameters here, but what's now interesting is the body payload. So in here, you will see that the API factory analyzes the function module and knows which parameters are expected by that function module. And what's even cooler here is that you also might have noticed this drop-down thing with examples, but where are they coming from? They change the payload somehow. And what's cool now is what's also very, very loved by all the ABAP developers is that you, in such a function module, you have a test button. So if you click on test, SAP GUI will generate a test environment for you. You can pre-fill values, you can test it, but what's super nice is that there's also a test data directory. So if I open that, I can choose something, and you see that the tables which it's expecting, they already have 2 lines, for instance, inside. So I can prepare my tests, my test data in SAP GUI like everyone is used to, and this information is represented in Swagger UI. So it can even be consumed by someone who's not aware of SAP, who has no clue about the stuff. You can create him a test example and give him the Swagger specification, and he knows what to do. So now let's simply create a sales order, I would say. Let's click on try it out. What we want to do, obviously, we want to do a commit, Barbie transaction commit afterwards to save it on the system. And let's now put in a different reference that we see it. This is awesome. And now simply click on execute.
So Swagger UI is basically an external system to test REST APIs, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So the access to that API from API Factory is called from the outside.
Yes, that's exactly the way it works. So Swagger UI is a UI tool, an open standard, widely known among all web developers, which shows the developer an API which is specified with this open API specification, basically.
Okay.
So it's an open standard. And yeah, it created a sales order. So what you will see in the response, it's returning the body, and the body is actually what's defined in here. So for instance, the return table, what ABAP developers are also used to. There is all the messages listed which occurred during the booking. So is there warnings? Is there success messages? So we see what happens actually. We get error messages. And the most important thing, obviously, is the generated sales document. This is indeed the only export parameter we have here. So sales document, we get it. And if we now take a look in SAP, what happened? EA03, and we open that, you will see that we actually created a sales order by using a example reference thing, so test reference, and changing something, and then you're good to go.
That's awesome. So we created a sales order from in SAP from outside SAP.
Exactly. Without
Super nice.
actually coding. Yeah.
So, okay, but coming back to the API definition, to use this this API in external systems, or even with the DXP and the Open Edition, you can just copy this definition and use it to create the referring API on the other system, right?
Absolutely.
So in the Open Edition of DXP, we have an import function for exactly this definition. That means I create it once, import it, and can use it in the Open Edition.
Exactly. That's what's possible. It's even not restricted to the Open Edition. It's on each system which understands Open API. You can import that. So let's now simply grab this URL. So this is the top section of the Swagger UI, and you see how the Swagger definition is actually fetched. Let's copy that URL and paste that in the browser. Simply a GET request, which returns the Open API specification. I have now a browser enhancement that it shows it nicely, but the actual payload,
it's
very
straight.
It's oh sorry, it's a super insane deep JSON, and it gives you really all information. It gives you when it's a date, for instance, what pattern is expected, or if there's fixed values. It gives you, for instance, that you only have to pass an X or a space for that parameter. So we pull out as much information as we have in SAP and make that available.
Awesome.
So now let's simply grab that, maybe log in first to our Plan 9.
With Azure AD login.
With nice Azure AD login. No login mess, knowing passwords whatsoever.
Exactly.
So what we do now is REST API Designer. We want to import that now. So we click on Add. Let's copy the whole JSON part here and click on Import Swagger 2.0. paste. It's even formatting it nicely for you. Click. And there you go. So it generated the name of it, everything what is available in Swagger. You see the endpoint which has been generated. You see that it's going to be in JSON. You see all those endpoints that you can execute, the function module. So yeah, and this is also possible in many other systems, other tools which understand OpenAPI, this standard language.
Awesome. Really nice. So I think that's it. Or, Thorsten?
Yeah, I think I showed a good overview about the capabilities.
Nice. Thank you so much. I grabbed the screen again. Oh, here we are. So yeah, I think that was really a great session to see what magic is inside the Neptune Digital Experience platform. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. And yeah, have a nice day. Don't forget to check out Neptune Software's social media accounts. And if you have questions, just send us an email, and yeah, we will come back to you. So yes. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.